Or would you? Because thanks to these frames, you probably can. Although I haven't seen anyone uploading the 3D models of frames, so you probably have to have some basic 3D modeling knowledge and skill. You also have to have access to a 3D printer. You also have to have knowledge of how they work and what materials are good. And overall, I think you'll probably just end up with a worse version of the frame you're trying to pirate. But I mean, it is possible, and that's because these frames were made to make that possible. They're made to strengthen 3D printed frames. But that wasn't originally what they were made for. This is actually the second version of the Prime frame. The first version was made to strengthen freestyle frames way back in the day when everyone wanted to skate freestyle. Remember that? I did a poll recently, and almost no one skates freestyle now, which is very interesting. Everyone's on anti-rocker, and most people are on flat. I'll touch back on whether the 3D printed stuff works. First, I'll tell you how the whole stock wall works. And yeah, I skate flat, so it's going to be how it skates flat. So these frames were made to be an anti-rocker frame, with flat being kind of the second thought, or kind of an afterthought. And when I first heard that, I was kind of expecting these to be a not-so-good flat frame. But I am thoroughly surprised with how good they are. When I first skated these, I had them on the blank skates after skating the blank stock frame. And it was so nice to be not skating that blank frame. This was so much better for wheel bite on everything I was skating. And I've been hooked ever since, and this has been my go-to flat setup since then. And I do really like it. I was even skating it with wheels that are too big for it. You mean to skate them with 58mm wheels? I was skating it with 60s, and it was totally fine. Every day, everything I was skating, or the normal obstacles I skate around here locally, were totally fine. No issues at all. Until I went out of my normal spots into a lower ledge spot. I'm talking like skate height kind of stuff. I have some clips now to show you. And that's when I noticed the wheel bite on a 60mm setup on these frames. Those ledges were kind of unskateable. Like even sole grinds and stuff were sticking. So since then, I went back and switched to some smaller wheels. I got the Ryan Parker Conjure rear wheels now that I'll never be able to get again. It's so sad to be skating them, but this is a cool looking setup, right? You gotta agree with me. And I haven't gone back to test it out, but they feel great now. And yeah, and like I said, when all my normal stuff I skate, no problems with the groove. I have skated the 50-50 balance original frames, and this is a much more forgiving groove. It's a lot wider, it feels a lot more free, and it feels like just a good standard flat frame. And I do like it. I'm very, very impressed. Although I have heard the New Balance 2 frame is better for flat, and I would love to try that one out. The other question I get asked about these a lot is if the ride height is weird. I've compared it to all my other skates. It's literally the same height. There's no new ride height. It feels exactly the same. The other big question people ask is, do they feel like a metal frame? Because if you see, I'll show you. This is what the core is like. It's just a big curve of metal, and holy crap, this looks cool in this setup. But yeah, you have this, and then you just connect the sidewalls through the first wheel and the back wheel. That's all it is. When I've been skating these for the last year, they do not feel like metal frames to me. And I mean, I love metal frames. I'm a huge proponent. I love the solar frames I have behind me here. Nothing compares to skating these, man. They're so nice. I also have the aluminum symmetric frames, and the metal you really notice it. It's like so much more rigid. You feel every bump. You feel every turn. You're in full control. These do not feel like this. These just feel like a normal plastic frame to me. Now, there's definitely some extra support added there, but yeah, not enough for me to notice much of a difference, really. And I mean, even when I just look at the setups here and I like look at it and compare it to like the solars and the symmetrics, like you can just tell the metal's a lot more like low profile and slim and a little bit less rigid. Doesn't seem to add quite the same amount of sturdiness that like a metal frame would have, which I think is good. I feel like this is in a good middle ground with being too like heavy and hard and metal and like no shock absorption, and being like too soft and floppy plastic. It's a good place to be, I think. I don't really do this myself, but I think it's the best part of it is the fact that you can change the walls with just the first and back wheel. Now there's the same amount of bolts as UFS to change, but it is so much easier to undo these bolts versus doing the UFS. We've all been there, right? When you're undoing a UFS bolt and the thread starts spinning in the boot, and then all hope is lost. You have to take your whole skate apart to get that frame off. And then some frames, you know, the wheel is in the way of the bolt. So with this, it's always easy to take it off, which means if you have two setups, like say you have a flat setup to get around, maybe you want to swap from flat to anti here and there, or you have a big wheel setup and you want to switch to like a grinder setup, it's much more easier and much more consistent to do on this core setup. It's so much better than UFS. I'd honestly even say it's better than the shifts, because I mean the shifts stop me skating razors. They're just so floppy. I feel like you don't have much of a trade-off with this core for swapping out quite easily. you know. So the stock walls you get on these aren't 3D printed. They are just like every other 50/50 frame or every other frame in the market, the same kind of solid plastic you get, which means they slide really well. They hold up really well as well. Like, look, I've been skating these for like a year now, and this is my switch foot, but it's like they're brand new, man. I've done like nothing to them. And I'm kind of convinced that skating flat just makes frames last an insanely long time. But yeah, when I skated the balance frame, the original one, I found it wore out and became unskatable flat pretty quick. These have been holding up way better than that, and they're really good. The overall hardware as well is I'm very impressed with as well. It's kind of like it's not like up there with like an adapt kind of hardware, but it's good enough. I haven't rounded any bolts. The biggest upgrade they have is that you only need one Allen key now, which is so good. One side doesn't take an Allen key, the other side does. And yeah, that's how every single frame should be. It's so much better. The only problem I have with the hardware is every single time I put the axle in, it gets stuck at every single point in the wheel. I'm talking on the first bit of the frame, on the first bearing, on the bearing spacer, the next bearing, and the next frame wall. It always gets stuck. Now, I don't skate anti-rocker, so I haven't skated these anti, but I've only heard good things. I'm not going to go switch to anti just to do this. I tried anti once in the last few years, and I can't go back, man. I'm telling you, I'm too deep on flat. It made skating so not fun. I don't know how I skated that for so many years. But anyway, I think if you skate anti, you kind of can't go wrong. What frame is bad for anti? But anyway, let's move on to the more important part of this review. The reason this is the most innovative product we've seen in a long time, and that is the 3D printing side to this frame. I really can't get over how amazing this product is for this fact alone, the fact that 3D printed frames can work. The only thing you're limited with designing a frame for these is where the first and back wheel is. You can do anything you want with the metal as long as you make the wheels fit and stuff like that. And that has led to some really creative designs that would have never happened if it wasn't for this frame. Like the ones you see tree skating with like double grooves. There's a lot of really good designs coming out of this. And it's really cool to see. It really, I can't emphasize how cool it is that this product has brought the bar down to design some new frames. Because you no longer have to go out and like spend thousands of dollars on molds just to test out a new groove if you have a theory on. Now it's just like a little bit of time, and I actually don't know how much it costs to 3D print something, but it's definitely a lot cheaper, and you can definitely make little tweaks so much easier and so much quicker than getting something made in China and waiting for it to get shipped to you to then send it back for a little update to get it back. It's so much better and it's huge. And if you have a frame idea, I highly encourage you to do it through the Prime market, because if I haven't mentioned yet, which I don't think I have, 50/50 actually has a marketplace for all the frames that are made for this Prime design, where they will actually print and ship and do all of the back end stuff for you themselves. So you just got to come up with a design and then talk to them and they'll set it up for you, which is insane and such a good idea. It's like the print on demand shirt but for frames, which is really cool. But I guess I should probably tell you whether it actually works or not. The first frames I tried out was the Justin Thursday T60R, these ones here. Now this is a pre-release version, so there's definitely been some updates since then. But I absolutely loved this frame. It was so fun to skate, man. It is a rocket frame, my first one ever. And it felt so bad at first. I was slipping over everywhere. But eventually I got used to it and it was so fun. I don't know if I wore my wheels out so I lost the rocker, but eventually they didn't feel wobbly at all. The groove was great. I had heaps of confidence on it and I absolutely loved it. Although there is this clip of me here doing a back sab, getting absolutely smoked from wheel bite. But I don't know, I'm very impressed. Justin knows what he's doing when he designs a frame. And I really, really liked skating these. But I posted this on Instagram when I first set them up. While setting them up, one of the bolts on the back, it actually split the 3D printed frame here through the thing all the way down, which was, I was so worried about that. I don't have any others. I didn't have any other frame walls at the time that were 3D printed, so this was my only way to test them out. So I was kind of like expecting them to snap off under my feet in the few months of skating them, but they never did. They held up really well. They slid so fast, by the way. Something about 3D printed plastic slides so well. The downside to notice though is they do wear in quite quickly. Like I actually put there's a bit of a rail groove in the plastic on the side. Like it dents in from the rail I was skating, which is very interesting. Another thing that happened is a chunk actually snapped off the H block in the back. I didn't even notice that come off and it didn't even affect it. I didn't even notice. That left me not feeling confident that I could have this as like the only setup, my go-to one setup with no backups. And it makes me not feel like I can confidently tell you to just get the core frame with a 3D printed wall, because I think you're going to have backup frames on you, and you're going to be changing the walls a lot more than you would if you had a plastic frame wall. That being said though, even though it was like cracking and chipping, it is still insanely strong. I held onto these. I was going to throw them out. I was like, I should save them for this video to see if I can snap it. And I was trying to snap it as I put it in the bin. You can't snap it. Like, I can squeeze this as hard as I can. It doesn't snap. It's very, very strong. Like, it's not going to snap. I do have other frame walls here that I haven't got the chance to skate yet, and that's because, well, I have the Hex ones here. There's a new version of this now, so it's kind of like, what's the point of me skating if there's a better version out? The main reason I haven't skated this one yet is because I need 2 different wheel sides, and I still don't have the wheels for it. Then I have these sick one here, and this is another crazy thing that can only happen because of these frames. It's a frame wall that has wax built into it. And this is what I was going to test before making this video, but I ran into another problem here where I cannot get spaces into this. The tolerance is too small. I tried cutting it. They just will not go in. I spent like an hour trying to get them in. I couldn't get a single one in, and that just put me off even wanting to try skate another one, if I'm honest. Overall, I just feel like the 3D printed technology isn't quite there. It's at a point with this core frame here that it works, and you will be able to skate it for a decent amount of time, but it is still just significantly worse than having like a normal plastic frame. So if you do actually plan on trying out some 3D printed frames, skating them, making your own, or even just switching out frames easily with the core system, just using the core system at all, then I definitely recommend going for the Prime frames. It's a great product. I love it. It's excellent quality, and it is my go-to right now. I love skating these. They're so much fun. But if you don't plan on using the core at all, I would say go for a different 50/50 product, like the Balance 2. I've heard they're really good, and I really want to get my hands on some to try them out, because I just don't think the metal core adds enough to the frame to be worth the extra cost overall. Like I said earlier, it just feels like a plastic frame to me, so you might as well just get the plastic version for a decent amount cheaper, right? I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for making this video possible, and a huge thank you to you for watching. And now you should go for a skate, and you definitely shouldn't go to that link that I had at the start of the video and download the product there. Just definitely don't do it, okay? I'm watching.